The metallic tang of rage flooded my mouth as I looked at my grandmother trembling on her own porch, a solitary suitcase beside her. Her home of 5 decades, the Victorian with the wraparound veranda where she'd raised 3 generations, stood bolted behind her, its windows mirroring the dusk light like cold, indifferent eyes. My heart thrummed violently as her delicate hand reached for mine. "They changed the locks while I was at the funeral home," she murmured, her voice brittle like dried leaves. "Your mother said the house belongs to them now." Through the bay window, I noticed shifting shadows, my parents rearranging furniture, as though my grandfather had not been laid to rest mere hours earlier. My father's cuff snagged on something as he lifted a painting. Grandpa's watch gleamed on his wrist like a prize. "My name is Clara, I'm 29, and I'm a heritage conservationist. This is how I restored what avarice tried to claim and watched the thieves lose all they held dear." I'd relocated to Portland 14 months prior, leaving behind the house where my grandparents Arthur and Eleanor Reed had raised me. My mother Vivian and father Robert were always too absorbed in climbing social ladders to dedicate time to parenting, a truth they masked by criticizing my unconventional career path and absence of drive. Grandpa Arthur had been my anchor, a retired literature professor with rough, kind hands who taught me backgammon and integrity in the same breath. Grandma Eleanor was kindness embodied. Her kitchen always smelled of vanilla and rosemary, her insights shared over freshly baked scones. Their home wasn't merely a structure, it was the soul of the community, where weekend gatherings united people from all backgrounds. My calls with Grandma had grown odd in the months leading up to Grandpa's passing. She'd switch topics suddenly when my parents came up, her voice fading to a hushed tone. "Everything's all right," she'd say, though I detected the fear trembling beneath. I'd asked to return home when Grandpa's condition worsened, but she declined. "Concentrate on your work, sweetheart. Arthur would have wanted that." I discovered his passing through a neighbor's social media post, a digital stab that stole my breath. I took the first flight back, my thoughts swirling with unspoken words. Now, facing my grandmother's slumped posture and tear-raw eyes, I felt something turn irreversibly within me. This wasn't merely heartless, it was premeditated theft. "You're staying with me," I told her, lifting her suitcase, "and I swear they will answer for this." That night, in a modest hotel, I held Grandma as she finally shattered, crying deep, sorrowful sobs that seemed to arise from a place of profound loss. 60 years, she kept repeating, 60 years building that life together. I combed her gray hair until she fell into a weary sleep, then opened my laptop. By sunrise, I had a strategy, not only for justice, but for rebuilding. The next morning, I arranged a temporary workspace in our room while Grandma slept. I began researching systematically the way Grandpa had taught me to tackle any complicated puzzle. Municipal records showed the initial property title from 1971, listing both Arthur and Eleanor Reed as joint owners. But a newer will, dated just weeks before Grandpa's death, left everything to my father. Something felt amiss. Grandpa had always been thorough in shielding Grandma. Once, when I was young, he told me while pruning roses, "Always prepare for the unexpected, Clara. I've made certain your grandmother will always have a home and peace no matter what." I broadened my search, bank logs, security boxes, financial histories. Weeks of digging uncovered what my parents had tried to hide. An unrevoked secondary deed permanently listing Eleanor as co-owner regardless of later documents. With it, a trust of almost $1.8 million activated upon Arthur's death intended for Eleanor alone. The last piece was a handwritten note to Grandpa's lawyer dated days before he passed. "I worry Robert and Vivian are pressuring me in my weakened state. Whatever I may sign under strain, the original provisions for Eleanor must remain. She built this life beside me, stone by stone, and no one can strip that from her." My hands shook as I presented everything to Mr. Wilkins, Grandpa's longtime attorney, whom I recalled from childhood visits. He grew serious reviewing the documents. "This is unequivocal exploitation and fraud," he stated, "but I have a proposal that might offer more fulfillment than a typical court case." His idea was refined in its clarity. Using the trust's funds, we discreetly repurchased the house through a legal vehicle, returning ownership to Eleanor without my parents' awareness. At the same time, we submitted a lawsuit, keeping it under seal until the right time. Through an urgent motion supported by medical proof of Grandpa's state during the will signing, we persuaded the judge to freeze my parents' assets pending review. After reclaiming the house and moving Grandma back in over a weekend while my parents attended a gallery opening, I readied for the confrontation. A month later, I invited my parents to dinner at their home. They arrived dressed in fine wool, my mother already outlining remodeling ideas. "This kitchen needs modernizing," she remarked, ignoring Grandma seated silently at the table. "And these floors are so worn." My father agreed, impatiently tapping the hardwood Grandpa had laid himself. "We should tear down this wall. Open layouts are essential now." I set a manila envelope on the table between them. "What's this?" my father asked, hardly looking. "Notice to vacate," I replied, my tone calm despite the adrenaline. "You have 2 days to leave." My mother chuckled, a sharp, breaking sound. "Very amusing, Clara." "I'm serious." I pushed the documents closer. "This home is legally Grandma's again. It always was." My father paled, scanning the pages. "This can't be. We have the will." "A will secured through manipulation while Grandpa was medicated," I finished. "We have his letter to the lawyer, the original deed, and proof of your coercion. If you contest this, we'll add elder exploitation and fraud to the already filed suit." My mother's wineglass slipped from her grip, dark liquid spreading over the linen like a stain. "You can't do this to us," she seethed. "We're your parents." Grandma, silent until then, rose slowly. She stood tall facing them, her voice gentle but firm. "And Arthur was my husband for 60 years. He was ill, and you exploited that to steal all we made. You didn't just take a house. You took our memories, our safety, our self-respect." My father stepped forward, stabbing a finger toward the paperwork. "This won't hold up. We'll fight this with everything we have." "Those assets are already frozen," I cut in. "The court approved our emergency request this morning. Your accounts are locked during the inquiry." What followed was turmoil, my mother shrieking blame, my father vowing legal battles. But the truth bore a force that crushed their defiance. They left that night, compelled to rent a hotel room with whatever cash they carried. The legal fight they vowed was short and ruinous for them. Just half a year after Grandpa's burial, the court affirmed Grandma's ownership, directing them to pay $500,000 in restitution for elder abuse and fraudulent activity. Their lake house was auctioned, their social world collapsed as the story circulated through the clubs and committees where they'd once held sway. The community that had witnessed my grandparents create a life of openness and compassion turned away from those who sought to dismantle it. Weeks after the ruling, they came at daybreak. Morning dew clung to the pathway as they kneeled on the stones, tear-streaked and broken. "Please," my mother pleaded, "we've lost everything." Grandma appeared behind me, her hand resting softly on my shoulder. "No," she said quietly, "you didn't lose it, you discarded it. May God pardon you both. I'm still learning too." She shut the door gently, the quiet latch more conclusive than any slam. That was the final time we communicated directly. Through acquaintances, we heard they divorced months later. The stress of their collapse splitting whatever bond remained. We returned the house to its original grace, reviving the garden, rehanging cherished pictures, restarting the Sunday meals that once characterized this place. Grandma used part of the trust to create a scholarship in Grandpa's name for students studying literature, a lasting tribute to the teacher who shaped countless minds. My parents relocated to a small flat across the city. No one called. They became phantoms, sometimes spotted in stores, their expensive attire slowly replaced by bargain wear. I founded my preservation studio nearby, focusing on renewing historic properties. Each morning, Grandma and I drink tea on the porch, watching the community stir. Each night, we leave the porch light burning just as Grandpa always did. Retribution wasn't rage and revenge. It was the calm reinstatement of order, the steadfast protection of respect, and the understanding that family isn't about blood, but about who stays when the wind's calm. Before you go, here's a quick extra for staying till the end.